Here we go. And good evening, ladies and gents. Welcome to another webisode of Aaron's movie reviews and film blogs here. Episode number will not change the world. So what I want to do today, as you probably saw in the description, is give a review for the highly anticipated film, The Man of Steel. Pardon. And also, I wanted to do a film blog about comic-related films. All films that have to do with comic-related material. Alright, so that's what this webisode's going to be about. For all you comic book fans out there, and film fans as well, let me just start out by saying this. To me, as a film critic and as a huge fan of comic books, the best recipe for a comic book film is staying true to the comic book. So, you're going to notice in this blog that if the film doesn't do that, I probably don't like it. If it does do that, I will like it. There's some cases where, I may still like it, but the truer it remains to the comic, the better the film is for me. To me, that's a good recipe for a comic book film. Doesn't always happen, and, a lot of times in Hollywood, that's why they get trashed, because they try to make a comic book film for the masses, and it ends up having no relation to the comic book, which is stupid to me, because the origin of the film is about the comic book, so it should always have at least some type of ties to the comic book. But anyway, so that's my outlook on comic book films. I love comic book films. They're a lot of fun. I love action cinema, kung fu. A lot of times comic book films have a lot of action in them. Almost always, you're dealing with a superhero. Regardless of what type of superhero, there's usually a lot of action. And it's always interesting to see what director. I like seeing directors that normally don't necessarily do work on comic book films or type of films like that, and see, what they do with it. Just like the last Superman film, Superman Returns, was basically an indie art house version of Superman, which was really cool to see, I really enjoyed it. Anyway, so I saw Man of Steel, kind of a bootleg version that I was able to see. Didn't really do it complete justice. I still want to see it in theater. Haven't had a chance to see it in theater yet. On a big screen, high definition, good detail, all of that. Perhaps 3D. I don't know if the 3D is necessary, but I would like to see it on a big screen in theaters to do it justice. So what I wanted to do today is just, do a really brief general overview of the film and what I thought about it. It is a highly anticipated film with a really large budget. The director of the film is Zack Snyder. They went through a ton of different directors that they were possibly going to use for the film. Some directors didn't want to do it. They turned down the offers, because they didn't agree with either didn't agree with the producers, or, just didn't want to work on it, got tired of it, or whatnot, or maybe didn't like the screenplay, for all different reasons. So anyways, at the end of the day, they ended up with Zack Snyder. Kevin Smith was working on it once upon a time, years ago, and I would have really loved to see his version of Superman, but, that's not happening now, maybe in the future. But yeah, so Zack Snyder was the director. I like Zack Snyder. I was excited to hear that he was doing it, The lead role starring is Henry Cavill. Now, excuse me. Now, overall, I enjoyed the film. It is a good film. Go see it. It's definitely worth seeing. Christopher Nolan was involved as a producer. You know, he wasn't the director this time around, but it still has that type of tone that The Dark Knight had, and Batman Begins had, and Christopher Nolan's trilogies had, where it's a more of a more of a serious approach to the film, and it kept a serious tone. There's not a lot of gag jokes or things like that going on. It stayed pretty serious, and it had a little bit of darkness to it, just like Batman Begins and Christopher Nolan's trilogy, which I enjoyed. I felt like that's how it should be presented. You don't want it to be too campy, with Superman flying around everywhere, and give it kind of a down-to-earth, serious tone. You're still gonna have your superhero stuff, of course, because Superman is essentially an alien, from another planet. So you gotta have that stuff because that's what he is. He's indestructible. He's Superman, Kal-El from Kryptonian. So yeah, I enjoyed the film. All around, it was a good film. I would give it 2 thumbs up. It's got a good, a good pace to it. It's not oversaturated with stuff. Henry Cavill, let me just talk about him for a second. I'm sure, a lot of people seen this film, even avid comic book fans, don't really know much about this guy. I know of him because, I've seen him in The Immortals and some other works. He's a British actor, and let me just say, when it comes to the Brits and acting, they're some of the best in the world. There's a lot of good American actors, of course, and a lot that I respect, but none any more than the British actors. I mean, they basically created acting, even back in the day with Shakespeare Theater, so a lot of these English actors are the best. Just look at a lot of examples that I don't even have to point out. I mean, I'm sure you guys are aware of them. Anthony Hopkins for one, Christian Bale. So Henry Cavill, he was in The Immortals. He was in the show The Tudors for a couple years. Hasn't really done anything huge. So for him, this is a huge role. I think a lot of people were anticipating. There were rumors of Nicolas Cage doing it. I think Nicolas Cage actually was set up to do it. I did see a documentary on YouTube about Nicolas Cage and his involvement with it. So I guess he was green-lighted for a while to actually be Superman. I don't know what happened there. Anyways, a couple different people. So I think I think a lot of people were anticipating a bigger name actor, someone more well-known, for this type of role because it's a huge role, But I kind of like the fact that they use someone that's not that popular or, has done more independent work or smaller films. I gotta give respect to this guy. He absolutely kills the role. They made a great choice. Not only does he look like Superman, he looks similar to Christopher Reeves. Perfect appearance for Superman, but his acting skills are good. The guy can act. So we have a good actor here. He pulls off the role, and he does a great job. So that was a big question, if he could pull that off, and he does. I think he does, and he's a good actor, and I look forward to seeing what he does. And if you don't know of him, this is the first time you've seen him, go back and watch The Immortals and watch some of his other films and TV shows as well. So, or miniseries, The Tudors that was on HBO or Showtime. I forget. I think HBO. It was a great show. To me. So, yeah. Point is, this guy pulls it off. He's a great actor. Back to the film. The film, has a good pace. It's not too slow, not too fast. It's got a good pace to it. I give the film 2 thumbs up. It's definitely worth seeing. It's got some good action. It's got some good, breathtaking moments. It's got a lot of drama. It's got some emotion in it. Keeps a serious tone, like I said. Remains pretty true to the comic book, which is even, the most important thing to me. So that was good to see. A good director, a good actor playing the role of Superman. So yeah, all in all, I definitely recommend it, and I look forward to seeing it again myself in the theater and really do the film justice and get another look at it. Sometimes I have to watch films twice, to fully immerse myself in it or fully get a good review of the film. Especially if it's a really deep or complicated storyline, which this one is not, but some of those more independent films or science fiction films that are more complex or have a complex storyline, I need to watch once or twice to really give a valid opinion or a valid review for it. So anyway, that's my review of Man of Steel. All in all, it's a good film. Definitely check it out. See it on as big a screen as possible and enjoy the theatrics. Zack Snyder, you did a good job. And yeah, so check it out. It is a good film, comic book film, and I recommend it. Most of the comic book films that are coming out, that are big, they're okay. Nothing's been mind-blowing, not to me personally, except for the Christopher Nolan films, the Batman Begins. Definitely, I held highly, and the Dark Knight. The Dark Knight with obviously Heath Ledger's performance and just the classic Batman Joker tell done by Christopher Nolan, a true masterpiece. The third act, the Dark Knight Rises, wasn't really a big fan of it. I think it was way oversaturated with too much stuff, too many villains, too many things happening, and trying to outdo yourself. That's the thing. I mean, when films go too many try to advance with too many sequels, it usually doesn't work, so that's usually a given. So what I want to do before I end this blog is just go over a couple other comic book films that I enjoy and I would recommend people to see that are, classic or newer films or more recent films as well. Um, One film that I think is highly slept on, probably, and maybe kind of obscure, not known to, a lot of film fans, and probably not known to anyone that's under 18 years old, um, is a film called Punisher, and not the John Travolta version, but there was actually a previous version, which starred Dolph Lundgren. And anyone that likes action films, from back in the day, in the 80s especially, Dolph Lundgren has been a big name, since then. He still does acting, but that was probably his height, was in the 80s, maybe 90s, somewhat too. But yeah, so I want to recommend that. It's the Punisher, the original Punisher, so if you go online or download it or whatever, make sure it's not the John Travolta version. It's the Dolph Lundgren version. I highly recommend that. One of my favorite comic book films of all time is going to be Todd McFarlane's Spawn. Not sure if he directed the film. I have to check on that. But it's his comic book from Image Comics. Todd McFarlane, basically the creator of Image Comics, which was huge in the 90s. One of my favorite comic book series ever. Still to this day, I have all my comics from from that time period, that decade of the mid 90s, late 90s. And Image Comics, they're still around. They're still making great comics also now. But anyway, so Spawn, the movie Spawn was a great film by Todd McFarlane. I thought they really did the film justice. It was very true to the comic book. It was an absolutely great film. I loved it. Great night at the movies. Also, there was an HBO animated series of Spawn as well. Um, Excellent, very good. One of the best animated comic book series. One of the best animated series that I've ever seen, period, hands down. So I did want to recommend that. There's also a film called Creepshow. I'm sure you guys may be aware of. During the 80s, Stephen King wrote the film, and this has to do with EC Comics. It was basically their homage to EC Comics, which was, a horror comic book line that ran for some time and went through censorship and then emerged again. EC Comics Creepshow was their homage to that. It's basically like an anthology film with like 8 different stories inside, written by Stephen King. Stephen King does a little acting in the film as well in one of the stories, so definitely check that out. It's not necessarily directly a comic book film, but it was inspired by comic books. And they made the film to actually look like comics, so that film is highly recommended. If you've never seen Blade, I'd gotta recommend that. That started as a comic book as well, if you're not aware. As far as the sequels, they didn't do a lot for me. They're worth watching, but, at least see the first one if you've never seen Blade, starring Wesley Snipes. I'm sure you guys have probably seen that, and if not, you've definitely heard of it. So, those are all some comic book films that I want to recommend, that I thought, were really good throughout the past couple decades. There have been a few others, that were good. But, we just have to see. There's a lot of other comic book films that are going to be, that they're talking about coming out, that are highly anticipated that I would like to see. Like Deadpool is rumored to is possibly going to be done, starring Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool. I would really like to see that. If you haven't seen the X-Men films, the X-Men films were definitely held highly by me. Even the later ones, the X-Men First Class, a lot of them, they were all good. They were still great films. They did a great job with that X-Men franchise, so I highly recommend those as well. Watch all the X-Men films. There's a new Wolverine film coming out. Hugh Jackman is still playing Wolverine, which shows that he respects it, if he's taken on that role that many times. And coming off of Les Miserables as well. So yeah, the X-Men films as well. So basically that's going to end my video blog today, my comic book film video blog, and wish you guys a good time and have a good day. Thank you.